Hello, William and Mary, and thank you for joining us for our second live community conversation. We plan to run these conversations weekly over the next month to give our community a window into William and Mary's COVID-19 response. We're also going to be weaving into the conversations that we have, questions that we're hearing from the community. Before we begin, I thought I would give you a brief update on where we are right now. You'll remember that we have 4 goals that are guiding our response to this pandemic. The first, above all, is to safeguard the health of our community. The second is to keep teaching and keep learning. The third is, to the best of our ability, to keep our research operation and our university operations running. And the fourth, like many in the country, is to join the national effort to slow the spread of the pandemic. Today's conversation centers on our first goal, health and wellness. Wellness is a core part of William & Mary's identity. Over the last decade, William & Mary has increased our focus on flourishing, and our new vision, mission, and values statement make that explicit. We aspire to create conditions that ensure William & Mary will thrive for all time coming, and to empower those who live, learn, and work here to make choices towards a healthy and fulfilling life. William & Mary has become known in recent years as a national leader in student wellness. Our McLeod-Tyler Wellness Center has put forward a holistic approach to thinking about multiple dimensions of wellness. Our student wellness ambassadors are changing the culture at the institution. Right now, as we're discovering, the value that we place on wellness has never been more pressing, never more important to elevate in all our intentional work. In fact, as we have been thinking about wellness in the context of strategic planning, one early understanding was that we wanted to expand our focus on wellness beyond students to the whole community, to faculty, and to staff. We're proud of our resilience over the past month at William & Mary, and it's so clear right now that every dimension of wellness for everyone in our community is going to be the key to resilience. So with that as background, I want to welcome our guests here today. We're going to chat for just a little bit less than a half an hour. Kelly Crace, William & Mary's wonderful Associate VP for Health and Wellness. Maddie Miller, a senior and a wellness ambassador. She'll tell us in a little bit what that's about. And Colin Cross, a graduate student in William & Mary's School of Education and a graduate assistant for our fitness and wellness program. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Our focus in this conversation is going to be what are the keys to flourishing in this period of such rapid change and so much uncertainty. Kelly, maybe you could kick things off for us.
Thank you, President Rowe, and thank you for the opportunity and invitation to have this conversation. I frankly bring very little wisdom to this conversation, but I'm very fortunate to bring 2 students into the conversation with a wealth of wisdom around this issue. I also am simply a voice to kind of represent the vast amount of colleagues that we have on our university campus that are really being great examples of devoting their time and energy to furthering our wellness and our resilience and our flourishing at our university. When I think about the transition you've kind of led us through of moving from this kind of acute crisis intervention to more of an ongoing level of thinking about operations and how we want to be as a community and how do we want to flourish as a community in more of an ongoing way while this pandemic is still with us, while the conditions are still with us. 3 things kind of come to mind the most. They are things that we all know at some level, but they are things that are important for us to be mindful of, to be very intentional of. And I would like to share those briefly and then turn that discussion over to our students to kind of share their wealth of wisdom around this issue of wellness and how it's impacted them. When I think of this transition to flourishing during this ongoing situation, one of the first things that comes to mind is how important it is to recognize that it's very normal and appropriate that when we're in crisis intervention, it's okay for us to be in protective mode. Our mind naturally goes to kind of a protective way of thinking during crises. As we transition to more of an ongoing healthy management, it's really important for us to realize that we are a species that can hold complex layers of experiences. We can hold grief and hold fear and also hold purpose and healthy self care. They don't have to be either or. When we look at that, it's so important for us, though, to be intentional about it. The intentionality of moving purpose and healthy self care to the foreground is something that has to move from preference to value. During normal times, we can keep healthy self care sometimes as a preference when we have time for it, when we have space and energy for it. During these times, it really has to move to a value. It has to matter to us more. It has to have greater meaning so that it moves us forward in this level of really being healthy and flourishing. So we can still be upset. We can still be scared, and we can be very intentional about being healthy and purposeful because that gives us a sense of agency. It's also really important at the end of the day to kind of reflect on where we've acted with purpose and meaning and to share that with others because that moves purpose to meaning. That moves purpose to this deeper level of meaning and brings wellness into that sense of meaning. So it can be messy, doesn't have to be clean, but we can hold messy. And the reason why that's so important is it moves struggle to healthy challenge instead of to strain. Struggle is normal, challenge is healthy. How do we keep it moving from strain? And that's bringing purpose and wellness and healthy self-care to the foreground. The second thing that I've been so heartened by and inspired by is the reminder of how wellness is truly a community endeavor. It's something that our health and wellness departments, we're just more visible. But what we've seen over the past 2 weeks so many entities that have really furthered and deepened our sense of wellness and resilience. We've looked at the faculty interactions with students that have bolstered our sense of wellness. We've looked at our essential personnel that are on campus every day and our staff and our multiple service agencies, all of our service units, not only all the departments of student affairs, all of the departments, but facilities management and HR and procurement and Reeves Center and all of the service units that are there every day are really furthering and broadening and deepening our sense of community. All play a role in that. All of us play a role in flourishing. And that has to be very mindful during this period of time. Um, the third area is really kind of this area of social support, but kind of moving beyond how we normally think of social support. Social support is critical to combat our sense of social isolation and the importance of connecting with others. But there are so many more layers to that. It serves so many other purposes that is important for us to be mindful of. The first area is by connecting with others, it's providing us a sense of perspective and empathy and compassion with the varying impact that all of this is having on us, especially the varying impact of moving from crisis to ongoing healthy self-management. We're now in a new transition. So that's going to have varying impact on us. We're all in this, but we're all in it differently. By connecting with each other, we're reminded and can share in the both meaningful and inspiring experiences of this, and also can share in our varying levels of pain and varying levels of struggle. Think of how this impacts the students in varying ways, from student that may be here their first year to their last year, from undergrad to grad, from international and out of state and in-state students, to students that are going home in a supportive environment, to students that are going home in a place of strife, in a place of pain. Our staff and faculty are all bringing various perspectives, and this is all impacting them differently based on their role and their responsibilities, but also the home life that's a part of that. When we can take the time to understand each other and share with each other our different levels of pain and meaning and inspiration, that's what builds a sense of community and builds a sense of flourishing on more of an ongoing basis. The other thing about social support is it's a great way to learn from each other. The simple truth is there are people among our community that have a lot of practice with dealing with chronic disruption, people with disabilities, people with chronic health issues, people with marginalized identities have frankly, they have more experience and more practice with dealing with both acute and chronic disruption in their lives. We can learn from them. We can learn from their wisdom, and we can learn from each other in that. And then the last thing that's so important with social support is it reminds us of our special sauce at William and Mary. We may become really skilled at this remote teaching and learning and servicing each other remotely, and we may actually grow from this to where that we become better for it. But it never is what really is special about us. It's about deep human connection. It's about that level of connection. The reason we built the virtual health and wellness site was not to maintain service. It was to maintain our connection, our deep relationship with our students. Just being mindful of those things can, I think, really help us flourish. And being mindful of our relationships and our special sauce of what makes our campus special is really our students. So with that in mind, I want to turn this conversation over to the wisdom of our students and turn it back over to you, to President Rowe, to kind of ask some questions of them that can bring them into the conversation, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. I just want to say how much I appreciate the concreteness with which you talk about that complexity that we're holding, emotional complexity, social complexity in this time here of striving for connection when we're self-quarantining, um, physical complexity of navigating the world differently, and also your reminder to look for, to think differently about those who have knowledge and expertise that matters now in a new way. So I welcome that so much. Um, Maddie, maybe you could kick things off for us too, just by talking a little bit about what the work is of a wellness ambassador. You've done that for a couple of years now. And then how is it different now, that work, in the last month, in the time of pandemic?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing I'm noticing is that despite all the change that's happening, our role has really stayed pretty similar. And so focusing on the connection and on the challenges between our peers. And I think that's the value of being a student and being in that role, is we know we're in it with them, and so we can relate in ways. And so one of the things that just, in terms of challenges, this notion of, my friends and I were talking, and this thing of like comparative suffering, and it's playing a pretty big part in our lives right now. And so just realizing in some way, shape, or form, we're all doing that. And what I mean is, as a senior even, can I really be upset that my graduation is up in the air right now when people are so ill? Or how dare I be happy and have a nice moment in the kitchen with my mom, in this moment. And even as a student who studied abroad and had to come home early, unexpected because of an illness, I've realized that, can I be upset that this once in a lifetime experience is gone for now, when I'm not a healthcare worker, I'm not a grocery store worker? And the answer is yes, right? And so as a wellness ambassador, connecting and over Zoom or FaceTime or Snapchat or Instagram and saying, oh my gosh, you're feeling that way too. And saying that's all healthy, it makes sense why I'm doing that, and it's healthy for me to be really empathetic. And so just chatting with peers about being empathetic with ourselves and with others who maybe don't quite meet our suffering meter sometimes in our minds, and saying, okay, so let's rethink that. So I know now our Instagram page, each day we have different wellness ambassadors and students taking over the story and just taking us through a day of like, what does wellness look like your way, wherever you are right now?
That's really wonderful. You're making me think about the difference between perspective and being judgmental. That you talked about expanding the perspective on what might suffering be right now. I would hope we could do that and let go being judgmental and accept the feelings that we have as real at the same time. It's a really complicated task, but I would want to affirm that, and I'm really grateful that that's part of the work that you're doing. I'm curious if you found anything unique and important or different about the undergraduate experience right now.
Sure. One of the things, and I think this has always been unique about William & Mary, but I think our professors and our students are just like gems of people.
Mhm.
And so I think, especially in a time where we all feel like we need that extra sense of community, we've all really stepped up and expressed our needs more, or really, I'll get emails from my professors saying, hope everyone went outside today. It's really nice out, or just those little things that end up mattering a whole lot. And I think it's important that wherever we are, taking the time to actually let them matter. And yeah, I would say the connections is still the biggest thing, and it's a beautiful thing to see those being maintained in such a consistent and intentional way.
I was taking a walk in the woods, and um, an undergraduate who's in town ran by, and we chatted a little bit about his experience in class last week. And he said something really sweet, which was, he said, my professors are really nervous. And my class said, you don't need to be. Like, it's okay. We're going to be in this together. And that was um, like what you're saying, that the awareness of human emotion and complexity seems really high right now in a very good way.
Right. I was talking with my friends this week, just 2 days ago, and we were talking, gosh, I have all these assignments kind of clustered right now. Isn't that weird? We're all having, exams or papers at the same time, huh? And then one of us was just like, wait, I think this is midterms. And we were like, oh my gosh, you're
Yep.
right. Like, it's after spring break, it's actually midterms. And so I know that's going on this week as well.
Colin, I know you wear so many hats right now. So can you talk about what it's been like as a graduate student, as a leader in our wellness program? Give us a picture of the last couple of weeks for you.
Sure. Yeah. So, a little bit of background. So, I'm a graduate student in the counseling program in the School of Education. I'm in my second semester of my second year. So, in the midst of internship and seeing clients in addition to coursework. And then I'm the graduate assistant for fitness and wellness with Jenny Dunphy at Campus Recreation. So, overseeing the fit well instructors and the personal trainers and those programs. Uh, and it's been a very interesting transition. And I think more than anything, I'm amazed at how quickly everything has been pulled together and how much dedication has been in that on all sides. So in the counseling world, the clinic that I was in was a completely face-to-face person counseling clinic. We moved to full telehealth within a week. Really amazing, a lot of transition periods. So a huge shout out to everyone at New Horizons Counseling in the School of Education. Um, and behind the scenes in the, everyone's now seen, or a lot of people have now seen, the virtual health and wellness website that we're developing and all those resources. And a lot of schools are working to do that. And we know we're kind of one of the first to really get that up and running, because we knew more than anything, Jenny made a great comment about how we want to make sure there's a community element to it. That's the thing that we all right away felt like we were stripped of. We all expected to come back from spring break. And that's, I think, one of the most impactful things, in addition to how scary all this is how quick it was. All of a sudden, we weren't coming back from spring break. Nothing was going to resume being the same. And it just really strikes me how that is really profound in a subtle way, right? It's not, it really impacts you, but it's obviously the less important component in some ways. And so the community sense of what we've been working to develop, I think, has been, as you said, that's such a big part of it, is helping try to connect people and give some semblance of community, while also creating more resources and creating more opportunities for the wellness pieces that people are looking for right now.
I'm incredibly grateful for how fast and how creatively you stood up that virtual health and wellness site. It's marvelous. As you think forward from just this moment right now, and maybe think about the opportunities we have because we're exploring these modes of connection. Do you have any hopes or goals for the site?
Absolutely. I think the big thing for me, my perspective, is the importance of being radically introspective and accepting. And what I mean by that is this time is totally different. And so the things that we turn to feel better, our coping mechanisms, the things that we do, and I like to think of them as both proactive and reactive coping skills. So we're in a time that is reactive right now. We're all reacting to this, but the regular things we can do, the proactive things we can do to help ourselves feel a little bit better every day. What are those and as Kelly said earlier, I think so well about finding the regularity in that, and that becoming a value and something that's regular. And so my biggest goal with the virtual health and wellness personally is to open up more opportunities for varied experiences. I think when you're in a different time, you don't necessarily, you can turn to the things you've done before, those might help, but you want to try to also find other things, because we're in a different time, and the more resources you have, the better. And so that's the whole idea, is that it's not just that we're going to have yoga and meditation, we're also going to have exercise oriented courses, and we're going to have just different nature programming, things that are very different, so that you can go and explore a little bit and see what resonates with you. Try something new. This is the best time, more than ever before, to try something new. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. It's not something that resonates with you, try something else. And that's kind of my biggest, is explore and be radically introspective. Is this working for me? Am I feeling better? Sometimes those old routines are going to be what works best for you, but sometimes something new might really open up and really help you settle in an unsettled time.
You said something in a couple of days ago when we were imagining this conversation about the importance of recognizing that we're all carrying an additional emotional and cognitive load. And just to acknowledge that and not expect the same level of speed, productivity, creativity, resilience, any of the things that you might imagine about this is me, knowing that we're carrying a weight of the uncertainty of the health of our country and our neighborhoods, knowing that we're in a time where it is really uncertain, and we just have to tolerate that uncertainty. Have I captured what you said?
Yeah, no, I think so.
Better, Colin?
Absolutely. So, no, I think you put it extremely well. It's this, to be where we are at William and Mary, we've all worked really hard. We have expectations of productivity, right? Like we work hard, we put in effort constantly. And I think it's hard to capture how this is a time more than others, but I think also a time to encourage us to always reflect on this and accept it. And it kind of goes to my other piece about being radically introspective, but also radically accepting. It's okay to not be as productive as you were before. It's okay to, sleep in a little bit later if that's what you need right now. It's a different time, and there's, as you said, there's so many stressors that we're all wearing that we might not even realize.
Yeah.
And anything we can do to help ourselves feel any amount better, I think is extremely important. But I think the biggest piece of that is being more accepting and letting go, and not holding additional weight that we don't need. And that productivity piece, that it's hard to be productive right now. Everybody is being productive right now by staying home. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I'd encourage, is really value everything that you're doing, because right now the simple action of staying at home is being productive, does have value in a way that it never has at other times. But also, moving forward, what can you carry forward with that, from that experience into life beyond this, and the value of self-care, and the value of doing what helps make you the best person you can be to take out in the world. That's also productive. And that's the whole idea behind wellness. You can't pour from an empty cup. So fill up your cup every day.
That's wonderful. Well, so you're both wellness ambassadors. You're teaching and you're guiding other individuals, peers, our community. How has that work shaped your own approach to wellness? And has anything changed for you?
Yeah, I think the first thing that just comes to mind is that I have to be really compassionate with myself, and that isn't something I find I naturally do. So even in the realm of productivity, we see like the memes, and it's of like we talked about this a little, but like of Einstein or Newton creating calculus during his time off, and we can scroll past that and be like, haha. But I think at some level, as a William and Mary student, it's kind of like, well, if I was smart enough, I would probably do that, right? Like there is just that level of it. And so I think being compassionate enough to say, no, it's okay. Like I'm going to go bake with my mom. I'm going to go do something that just for fun or just because I'm here. I don't have to do those things. And so I think this message that this is a time for hustle might be the ultimate distraction for what this time is really for, which in my view, and I know from the Wellness Ambassadors, is just to really take care of ourselves and of our families and those we love and even those we don't know. So.
Colin,
I think that's great. Yeah, well, I think that's great. I think it's such an important thing to consider that the little impacts, but just seeing and having those feelings of Einstein and other people having these huge breakthroughs in periods of rest. Part of that, I think, is that periods of rest are what are fueling those things. And it's not like they're doing it because they're hustling through those periods of rest. So let yourself rest, because likely you're actually putting out better and more work because of it. And as I've said, there's also value in the fact that a lot of this is invisible right now, because just these tolls that we're weighing and these emotions that we're wearing for society right now, that's a part of it. That is being productive. And so finding success and finding value and finding self-love and compassion and accepting through that, that's kind of my biggest thing. And for me personally, finding some semblance of structure. It's not the structure that I had before, but it is still a structure. And for having opportunities throughout the day to do different things that I wouldn't have done before, because I know where I'm going to be at all hours of the day right now, is convenient. And trying to build in more things that you love and work them into your day a little more integratively, as opposed to before, having to run from one place to the next and the stress of that. We have a very unique opportunity to really find times throughout the day to do things that we love.
Kelly, maybe one last word from you. Just if you're asked to choose one thing that you are doing differently in your leadership, you've been a national leader in this area, you lead in this community, and you've created incredible leadership partnerships with our graduate students and our students, our staff and our faculty. Is there any one thing that you are holding on to that's different right now as you imagine that leadership in collaboration with others?
All three of you have really spoken to the things that I think are most critical. We grow through challenge. I mean, challenge is a growth producing opportunity. And the way to keep challenge from moving to strain is to challenge ourselves with grace and with boundaries. And that's really hard. It's a hard thing to do. You've used the term in the past, appreciative curiosity. In flourishing research, we use the term active curiosity. That's really what overrides this kind of chronic evaluation. It keeps us from one-upping each other and comparing each other as to who's suffering more. By being truly curious, we're naturally an evaluative species. We just naturally evaluate ourselves and evaluate others. That's why we have to be so intentional about catching and recovering. It's not about preventing that from happening. It's just catching and recovering back to being intentional about leading every day with a sense of purpose, valuing self-care, and ending every day with reflecting on where did I step in with that purpose. And when we do that with wonder and with grace, that stems that evaluative tide to where we really can flourish amidst hardship. This is hard, and it's only hard. Struggle is not a bad thing. It's about learning to take care of ourselves through struggle that we grow through that.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are beautiful words to close on. I want to thank everybody for connecting, and all of our guests here for inspiring and guiding words to work with and learn with and live by going forward. Our next community conversation is going to be 1 week from today, Wednesday, April 8th at noon Eastern time. Also the Friday, since we have a wonderful leader in the School of Education here right now, I want to give a shout out to that at-home learning webinar for parents that the William & Mary School of Education is going to be running for all the parents who are out there and are managing your working and home lives during a period of school closure, who want to explore those new challenges for yourself and for your learners. And in the meantime, for everybody out there, please keep sending your questions our way. It's been awesome, by the way, to receive pictures of our students and colleagues studying and working virtually over these past weeks. So please keep them coming to president@WM. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to close the way I've started closing a lot of meetings, just to remind you that this is an incredible community to be standing together with, even at this moment of uncertainty and stress. And so my new normal is always to say, stay well.